elite through. Our characters are on the opposite end of that bell curve. When Picard screws up, you'd expect better from him. When Lister screws up, you know it's just as likely he's having a typical brain fart or is, well, just plain drunk.
But look at the flip side of the coin. It's not all good. Take someone like, say, St. Francis of Assisi. In this universe, he's the petty-minded little saviors to go around maiming small animals. Or Santa Claus. What a bastard. He's just a big fat git who sneaks down chimneys and steals all the kids' favourite toys.
Backwards opens with Lister and the cat discussing the undeniable sexiness of Wilma Flintstone, and then remember giving Crichton his driver's test for Starbug. The role of Crichton changed, now belonging to a different actor named Robert Llewellyn. At least I assume that's how his name is pronounced, since it's spelled the same as the guy on the People's Court. In any case, his take on Crichton is a definite improvement. The original looked and sounded very dainty and refined, whereas this one comes off as more of a working-class droid and has room for range, easily shifting between servile and authoritarian given the circumstances. Anyway, they take the test and wind up flying through a time hole and landing on a strange Earth where things are backwards. Words are printed backwards and things are happening in reverse. Lister and Cat follow them in 3 weeks later, and in a bit clearly lifted from Star Trek IV, they cloak and land to go looking for them. Lister's surprised that, upon arrival, his ribs are cracked, his back hurts, and he's got a black eye. They then find posters up for Crichton and Rimmer as the sensational Reverse Brothers, the job they've taken to make a living here. Lister's convinced they're in Bulgaria, though is still unable to work out why things are happening in reverse for quite a while. When they meet Crichton and Rimmer backstage, they say they want to stay, because this world makes more sense to them. People don't die, they return to life, live in reverse like an Amish space beekeeper, until all come together in a single glorious whole. Lister's unable to convince them. It's a bit odd seeing Crichton and Rimmer talking about spending the rest of their existence together, given how much they'll come to despise each other later on. But they soon get fired anyway, and it turns out to be because Lister and Cat will start a fight earlier that night, explaining away Lister's injuries. As they're about to leave, they wait for Cat to take a dump in the weeds, and then fully realize the implications of that, as does Cat. The backwards stuff is a bit repetitive, but overall this was a very fun episode. The classic Wilma Flintstone gag and the entire driving test scene continue the general Red Dwarf point that oftentimes their best bits have little to do with the actual plot. One part that never made much sense to me, though, is that nearly 200 miles away from London, someone decided to put up a whole bunch of posters for the sensational Reverse Brothers in the middle of the woods. Plot Point Express, when you absolutely, positively have to get the plot point there overnight. A warning, do not watch this episode while eating. It can get kind of gross.
Because you see, Lister, believe it or not, he told me that in a previous incarnation, I was Alexander the Great's chief eunuch.
Marooned could probably be considered a bottle show, the show done on a more limited budget to save money, presumably with the expense of retooling the sets and wardrobes. In this case, the title should probably give that away. That and its connection to the old Gene Hackman movie, the same name. Holly needs to navigate Red Dwarf through 5 black holes, so Blue Midget and Starbug set out to meet her on the other side. Starbug, with Lister and Rimmer on board, gets hit by an asteroid and crashes, and Lister must struggle to stay alive. Eventually, he burns all of Rimmer's books and is reduced to eating a can of dog food. And when there's no more food left and nothing left to burn but Rimmer's family heirlooms, some French wooden soldiers, Rimmer says it's time to burn Lister's guitar. However, when Rimmer is away, Lister carves out a guitar-shaped bit from Rimmer's priceless antique trunk to burn instead. Rimmer is moved by this apparent display of self-sacrifice, demanding that Lister burn the soldiers, only to realize in the end, once they've been rescued, that Lister tricked him. Marooned is both dark and funny. In it, it's revealed how Lister lost his virginity, about Rimmer's belief that in a previous life he was Alexander the Great's chief eunuch, Rimmer's Shakespeare, the famous Now speech, the comparison of Lister's butt to 2 badly parked Volkswagens, why dogs lick their balls, lots of fun bits. The character piece, though, is a real highlight, for in this episode we see Lister sink and Rimmer rise. Admittedly, Lister's been under severe strain, and Rimmer is in perfect comfort, but we see here the best example that the war between them has ended, and there's a grudging acceptance. Rimmer goes out of his way to encourage Lister throughout his ordeal, to give dispassionate advice on what he needs to do to survive. And it's all the more played up with the whole guitar chest thing, as Rimmer reflects on how great the sentimental value is to him, that it is the only thing that was ever given to him by the father he could never please, the only thing that showed he meant anything to the man. And each word makes Lister feel worse as he realizes he's stooped to the kind of weaselly behavior that he's always chastised Rimmer for. contrasted against Rimmer's apparent belief that Lister cares about him to sacrifice his guitar over his soldiers. Rimmer, who has always spoken in the past of how true friends don't really exist because every friend he's ever had has stabbed him in the back, now finally sees what he thinks is proof that he was wrong, and all of his spag-headedness evaporates. You can have friends you can count on, as Lister's selflessness displays, bringing out the best in him, demanding the soldiers be burned for his good and honest friend. You can actually see Lister squirm under the realization, and the later look on Rimmer's face when he learns the truth. You can see it all coming back. It's subtle, but you never really see this relationship recover from this.
Who's that there? An old girlfriend, Mr. Arnold, sir?
Hardly.
Oh, no, not really your type, I suppose. Silly old trout like that.
She's my mother.
The episode begins showing us a shape-changing monster, and even more terrifying, Lister's meal, consisting of an overspiced meal served in kidney dishes, stool buckets, and insemination syringes. The polymorph, choosing the most dangerous thing available to imitate, forms a copy of Lister's meal and then attacks him. The polymorph, you see, was a genetically engineered weapon that sucks emotions out of people as a form of sustenance, so it's trying to terrify him as much as possible. It turns into his boxers and he puts them on, leading to what is often voted favorite moment among fans.
Help me, please! Please!
The creature then turns into a monster and sucks the terror from Lister, leaving him completely fearless and thus rather crazed, so they sedate him. They go to load up Starbug with supplies, but encounter the polymorph. They fire 2 heat-seeking rounds, which wind up chasing Cat instead and are locked in a room, while the polymorph picks them off one by one, first taking advantage of Cat's extreme vanity and stupidity, then Crichton's overwhelming guilt. The polymorph then hits Rimmer where it hurts by turning into his mother and talking about how great sex with Lister is, so that it can take his rage. The result of this is that the 4 are now twisted versions of themselves. Rimmer is a typical spineless left-wing sponge, the Cat is a drunken bum, Crichton shows open contempt for all, and Lister is a crazed colonial marine. They head down to take it out, and when it sneaks up behind them, they release the pinned-up heat seekers, which blow it up and return things to normal. One fun thing about a sci-fi comedy like Red Dwarf is how the characters are so often at odds with the genre conventions. Given the option of hunting down and eliminating the creature, or running away, they elect to run away without much thought. Like in Hitchhikers, when most of the main characters aren't really interested in or capable of trying to save the universe, these guys have no interest in trying to do anything but putting distance between themselves and the danger. Polymorph introduces us to another staple of Red Dwarf, the first weapon, a mining tool called the bazookoid. Craig Charles in particular wields it like a champ after his transformation. It really gives him a chance to break out and do something in contrast to his normal character, and he plays the psycho really well.
I'm Pat, and this is my partner, Kellen. Well, actually, that's not the 2 of us. We figured this is a much better visual to start the show. That's because tonight's show is breasts. Wondrous, arousing, nourishing mouths, sexy, bouncy, beautiful nature have generated even bigger mounds of historical, psychological, political, and sexual bullshit. Yep, boobs, tits, knockers, and jugs. Fuck, is this the best show on TV or what? In your face, Dance with the Stars!